Hi guys, today we are going to be doing two more looks with the Blueprint palette from Melt. If you haven't seen this palette, if you don't know what this looks like, here's what it looks like. I've already done a video with this. I will link that up in the corner right there if you want to go see it if you haven't already. But yeah, I'm excited to play a little bit more with this. I wasn't really sure how I felt about it in my first impression. I was kind of like, it's okay. You know, I wasn't blown away by the formulas by any means. I think the mattes are nice. The blue one had a lot of fallout. This one seemed like a pretty good basic brown. I mean, it's a brown. It's not really that hard to make brown eyeshadows, it appears. So yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and play a little bit more with this and kind of see how I feel about it at the end of this video. So just gonna go ahead and start by priming. I finally bought a new one of my Natasha Denona eyeshadow base. I got this from Beautylish and it came in like 3 days, which was great because my Sephora order got canceled again for some reason. I had someone tell me that apparently if you like, I don't know, return for a certain amount every year, like they ban your account or something, which is so strange because I haven't returned anything since COVID. And I've definitely made online orders like throughout COVID from Sephora. And then all of a sudden at the end of last year, my purchases just didn't go through and I have no idea what's going on. But that just means that Sephora isn't getting my money anymore. So I don't know, maybe that's a good thing anyway. So for the first look, I think I'm gonna mostly focus on the neutrals. If you're new here, I don't really mess with neutrals too much, but I didn't really touch them a lot in my first impression. So I definitely wanna make sure I give them like a good test run. And I also thought that since I have the eyeliner from the Marterno collection, which is a dark blue, which is kind of the same as the ones that came with this palette, I didn't buy those because I figured I have this one, so I might as well use that. So maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll do like a neutral look with like a blue liner or something like that. Maybe a pop of blue in the inner corner. Could that be kind of fun? So I'm gonna obviously start with the only brown matte that we have in here. Just gonna start by packing this in the outer corner of my eye, and then I will take it through my crease as well. And we'll see how the shadow is on my lid and in my crease. I only used it underneath my eye last time and it worked fine. So I'm fully expecting this to be quite a nice shadow. I've said before, but I really do like Melt's mattes. It's just their shimmers that I'm a little bit like, they're fine about. And I know that some people don't like super intense shimmers, and if that is you, this is probably an amazing palette for you. But I've just come to know my own preferences these days, and I just prefer something that has a little bit more going on with it. I don't really mind if shadows kind of accentuate texture on my lid and stuff like that. Like I said, I know some people do, but I'm not one of them. I would rather have like super intense eyeshadows at all times. So these shimmers in this palette for me are just a little bit too lackluster, but I can definitely see why some people like shimmers like this still. This one is a very creamy formula. It's almost got a bit of a sheen to it without really having a bit of a sheen. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's definitely very, very easy to work with. So I'm just packing on the color where I want it to be before I start blending it out. So that's basically what I'm gonna do after. I'm gonna take this underneath my eye as well. I do want this to be quite dark and intense and blown out. So I'm just gonna really make sure I put on a lot of this and then really work on the blend around my eye. And then we'll put on some shimmers after and do an eyeliner. I don't think I want this to be like a complicated look or anything like that, but I do want there to be like some contrasts. I don't want this to only be like the neutrals in focus, but that's just kind of where we're gonna start with this. Not sure I'm loving the blend here, but that is totally my own fault and not the shadow's fault. I think what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna take the shade here, sort of in a half cut crease kind of shape, and then we'll do probably this one in the inner corner and then the blue eyeliner. So let's start with the shade called Hot Wire. I am going to put down some of my NYX glitter primer before we do that though, just because I want to see how intense I'm able to get the shadow. So like I said, I'm going to do this in a bit of a faux half cut crease here. So I'm just going to map out where it is my shimmer to go and then just fill in the rest of my lid with my glitter primer after. Dipping into the shadow with the same brush here, and I'm just going to go ahead and pop this all over my lid. Can't say I'm really feeling any kind of way about the shadow. I feel like I'm quite indifferent about it because bronze eyeshadows is like my least favorite. So regardless of the formula, I'm just not going to be very excited about it. But I will say it's quite a subtle shimmer. It's not really a metallic. It's a pretty basic shimmer. I mean, it's a pretty color if you like this kind of color, but like I said, bronzes just don't really excite me. So it just is what it is. So I'm just testing it out. Okay, taking a bit more of that matte now and just really packing that in the outer corner of my eye again to make sure that I have the depth that I want here. And I'm also just going to take it over this bronze shade and make sure that these are nice and blended together. Not having any kind of fallout with this brown, which is really, really nice, but could have something to do with, like I said before, that is kind of a creamy formula. It's not so dry, whereas I feel like the blue matte is definitely more on the dry side, and the drier the formula, the more kick up and the more fallout there seems to be. There's a little bit of kick up in this, but nothing too crazy. I think this is where I'm going to leave it with these colors. Next up, I'm going to take the shade here called Skylight, which I used in my first impression video in my inner corner as well, but I'm going to do the same thing this time because I really love a very light inner corner highlight. I am going to spray this with some Fix Plus, just like I did last time, because that way it just gets a little bit more intense. And I also got a question on that video. I know I replied to the comment, but they asked if I spray my brush before or after picking up the shadow, and I always spray my brush after I pick up the shadow, because otherwise you might end up getting hard pan, which you don't want that in your shadow. So you don't want to dip a wet brush into an eyeshadow. You want to pick up the shadow first and then spray it. I get questions about that all the time and I keep forgetting to say it. So as you can see, I'm just putting this in my inner corner and just kind of blending it into that bronze shade. And I'm also just going to kind of wrap this around. Okay, so the question is, am I going to do the same thing in my waterline and on my top, or should I do a different color in my waterline? I'm thinking I'll do this as like a liner on top, and then I'll do maybe a lighter blue, maybe like a turquoise. Maybe that could be kind of fun to like match the inner corner and then put that in my waterline. So I think that's what I'm gonna go ahead and do. So like I was saying, this eyeliner here is from the Amore Eterno collection, and I do not think this is available anymore, but it's probably quite similar to the ones that came in this collection, because they came out with two blue eyeliners. I think that one was metallic and the other one was matte or something. I'm really not sure, but this is definitely a nice alternative and quite similar. So I'm just gonna do a pretty thick wing here, or thick line, I should say. I'm not gonna do wing because I have hooded eyes, so I can't do wings. So I'm just gonna do quite a thick line here. And I always do my eyeliner a bit thicker on the outer corner of my eye. I try to not extend it past where like the fold that goes through my lid is, because that's when your eye is open, it looks a little bit wonky, but as long as you don't extend it out too far, you can definitely make it thicker and still have it look pretty good. I really wish I could tap over some of the blue shimmer in this palette over this liner, but since I do have hooded eyes, like I said, it's just going to transfer into my crease. It's one of those things that annoy me the most about having hooded eyes, is that I cannot use shadows as eyeliners. Like, yeah, I could probably like mix it with some Duraline or something, but who's got time for that, you know? So I think this is where I'm going to leave it with that, and then I'm gonna pop some of this in my waterline. This is Zulul from Colourpop. I don't know if this is available anymore. LA Girl has a similar one in the shade Fresh. I just grabbed the one that was closest to me, but they're both very, very good. So basically this is going to be it. I'm gonna finish off with some mascara and finish off the rest of my face, do some highlighter and some lipstick, and I'll be back and I'll show you the look. Okay, so here's the look all done. Let me just run through what I did to finish off. I was already wearing blush, but I'm just gonna say it anyway so I don't forget, so I can write it down. This is in Ripe Papaya. It's from Odens. I love these blushes. Did get this sent in PR. For my highlighter, I went with the Pixie Glossomer Duo in Subtle Sunrise, and I used the shade here. I think this is absolutely beautiful. I wanted more of a kind of neutrally toned highlighter to go with this look, and I feel like this looks really nice. And then for my lips, I'm using a lip liner from House Labs. This is in the shade Rule, and on top I have one of the new Odens lipsticks. I know I said last time that I couldn't talk about these because they haven't shown them yet, but I just looked on their Instagram and they posted a couple of pictures, so I think I'm allowed to show these, but these are so beautiful. They come in two different formulas. This is the shiny one, or like the more comfortable satiny lipstick if you want to call it that, but let me show you the close-ups of this because the packaging is A+ as usual. I do plan on doing a lip swatching video with these lipsticks. It's a very heavy packaging, and then you have the inside of it, like all the details. I just love how cute these are. And so far I've been really enjoying the formulas as well. They're like exactly what I look for in my lipsticks. I either want something that dries down matte, which the other ones do, or I want something that's very creamy and satiny-like, which is exactly what the other three are. So these are perfect, and I love the colors too. They're so just wearable. I hate that word, but that's like the best way to describe them. They're just very easy to wear and they go with a lot of looks. Does this lipstick go with this look? I don't know, that could probably be discussed, but I still think it looks nice, and I just wanted to try out this color. So that's gonna be look number one. I have a hair. I really need to wash my hair tonight. It's looking quite bad, but Anyway, yeah, that's gonna be it for look number 1. I really like it, actually. I do think that the shimmers are just a little too subtle for my liking, but I think that they perform well. Like they're very user-friendly, they're pretty easy to work with, and I don't really have any complaints when it comes to like the workability of the shadows. It's more just like a preference thing for me with this palette, that I wish that it just had a little bit extra oomph, because the mattes are so rich that I kind of feel like they should have something a little bit special to go with them, you know? But maybe that's just me. So that's gonna be for look number 1. Let's just go ahead and move into the second look. All right, so second look, let's go. I do have a plan for today's look, so I'm going to the dentist later. And like I said in the first look, I want to use some of the blues today, because in the first look, I mostly focused on like these colors, even though I did use a little bit of blue. But I think what I want to do is I want to do a big blue wing, but I don't want to touch the blue matte because I do not want fallout all over my face, since I am actually leaving my house today. So my plan is going to be to do a big wing using the same liner that I used in the first look, and I'm just going to outline the big wing and then fill it in with the shimmers. I'm probably only going to use the blue shimmers. I think that's going to be the plan, so maybe I haven't necessarily touched this shade at all, which kind of a boring shade anyway, let's be honest. So I'm gonna put down the palette for a little bit, and then I'm gonna work on doing the wing. And like I said, I'm going to use the same liner that I used in my first look, and I'm sure I said what that was. It's been a couple of days now since I filmed that. I'm gonna use a very, very small angle brush here, and I'm just going to use this to outline where it is that I want my wing to go. So it's a little bit hard to explain, and this is going to just depend on your own eye shape, how you want your wing to be. But I'm just gonna start going up from my lower lash line with my eye open here, and then just kind of draw where it is that I want my wing to go. And since I do have hooded eyes, you're gonna see a bit of a disconnect here, so I'm just gonna go ahead and connect that to my lid as well. And I did prime my eyes, and I set it with a little bit of nude colored eyeshadow because I don't need this to necessarily be sticky here. So I'm just gonna kind of work on this as best as I can. I'm gonna do the same on the other side, try to get these two even. This can be a little bit tricky if you haven't done this before, but it's just gonna take practice. And it took me quite some time to be able to figure out like exactly where to put it on my own eye shape, because like I said, I do have hooded eyes, so it does make it a little bit different here. So I'm gonna take it about to where my brow ends here. I think that's gonna be like my guideline. Are these even? I think they're about as even as they're going to get. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit more of this liner on my brush and just kind of connect that to the hood of my lid here up top. And I do want this to go just above the hood of my eye, so I'm gonna start in my inner corner and just trace this to kind of meet it up with where the wing on the outer part is. And this doesn't have to be perfect the first go around, because obviously you can go back and correct it, but I think that this looks pretty much where it is that I want it to be now. So I'm gonna try to do the same on the other eye, and then just fill in basically my whole lid with this liner. I am surprised at how even these are. I almost think that these are identical, which is quite the bold statement, but I can't really see a difference between the two sides, which is great. So I'm just switching to a kind of fluffy brush here, and I'm just gonna put this all over my lid. And if you don't have any blue eyeliner, you can absolutely use black, but I just thought I would use this since I have it, and I don't use it nearly enough, and I feel like black eyeliner I kind of use all the time, so it's nice to get a little bit of use out of a blue eyeliner too. And these are really, really nice as bases, so I'm not mad at this at all. And this would actually be really cool, just like using this on its own as well without layering anything over the top of it. So now that I've filled it in, I feel like they're a little bit uneven. I feel like it could be a little bit thicker on this side, but I'm not gonna fuss with it because I don't wanna mess it up. So I'm gonna go ahead and put on some of these shimmers. I don't even think I'm going to put down any glitter primer because this is going to be a nice base anyway. So I'm just gonna do all the shimmers. I'm gonna start with the darkest one on the outer portion, move into the second lightest one, and then do the lightest one in the inner corner. Don't think I wanna do anything under my eye. I think I just want this to be a very graphic look because sometimes that's fun too. I am going to spray it though, just because I don't want to have any fallout. So I'm just taking this on a random brush. This is from Dose of Colors. It came with one of the palettes. So I'm just gonna work on putting this in the outer portion of where I put down this base. And you're not really going to see this because it's basically the same color, but it's just going to be a nice way to sort of set that eyeliner and just get a nice and even application here. So next up, I'm taking a shade here called Deadbolt. And I'm just going to put that in the middle of my lid and just make sure that I blend it nicely into that blue. And I'm probably going to do this in a bit of a diagonal line in the way that I sort of put these next to each other. I don't know, I just find that it looks kind of cool that way. And then lastly, of course, gonna take the shade here called Skylight. I'm interested to see how this is going to layer over a base. I do feel like this is going to make it a little bit more intense than it is otherwise. Yeah, this looks really cool. I like this a lot. And you can really do this technique with basically any color. It doesn't have to be blue. Like I said, you don't have to use a blue base. And you can basically put any shimmer over the top of black. So using a black base like this and then putting whatever shimmers you want over the top is always a fun way to just kind of, I don't know, see how colors and shadows perform when you use them a little bit differently. I really enjoy doing stuff like this, even though I don't do it super often, because a lot of the time I just kind of prefer using mattes and stuff. But when doing something like this is a good way to just showcase shimmers. So I think this is going to be it. I'm going to finish off my eyes. I don't know if I want to do anything under my eye when it comes to eyeliners and stuff. I might just do a little bit of mascara. Like I said, I am going to the dentist, so yeah, I don't want, I might, you know, my eyes might start watering and stuff, or they might splash me in my face. So I don't want to have like anything that's going to start running or anything. So I'm going to finish off and I'll come back and I will show you the look. Okay, so here's the look all done. I didn't do anything really to finish off except for mascara and a little bit of nude eyeliner in my waterline, and that was it. I also did some highlighter. I want to talk about this because I used the one from Nabla. This is in the shade Privilege, and the first couple of times I used this, I really wasn't blown away by this at all, but then I got a couple of comments being like,
you need to use a fluffy, very flimsy brush to apply this with.
And I was like, really? Like, shouldn't it just work with like the other highlighting brushes that I have? So I used this one from Morphe. It's like the most flimsy brush that I have. It's the Y30, Y14. And honestly, I'm not mad at this. Maybe this is going to grow on me, I'm not sure. But I feel like it looks a lot better using a brush like this than using more of a dense brush that I usually use for my highlighter. So I don't know, gonna have to keep playing around with that, but just wanted to give you a little bit of an update because I haven't used that one in such a long time because I just didn't really like it at the beginning, but maybe it's going to be one of those very few products that I changed my mind about. That doesn't happen very often, but I feel like this could end up being one of them. So before I give you I guess I will talk a little bit about the palette before I give you some alternatives. So I feel like you probably know how I feel about this palette by now. I think that the mattes are really nice. The blue matte does have quite a bit of fallout, so you're gonna have to be quite careful, but they're very nice and pigmented. They're quite easy to work with other than the fallout. So I like the mattes in this palette. The shimmers are quite lackluster if you ask me, but that is again personal preference, and I just prefer something that's a little bit more interesting and unique, and I find these to be just very basic, kind of bland shimmers. And I know some people don't like shimmers that accentuates their textures and they want something a little bit more mature or just a little bit more toned down, and this I would say is it if that is what you are looking for. If you want some alternatives to this palette, because this is expensive, it's $48, I definitely have a couple of palettes for you that I can kind of recommend. Some are in the same price range, but just, you know, you get more options, and some are a little bit cheaper. So the first one is definitely going to be the one from Colourpop. I forget the name of that one. I've actually depotted like all of my small mini Colourpop palettes, like the monochromatic one, so I don't have it in front of me, but here's a picture. So that one I would absolutely recommend. It's one of the best palettes that I've ever tried from Colourpop. Their blues are actually really nice in that palette. Obviously in that one you don't get any neutrals, so you know, it just depends on why you are wanting the melt palette, and if you just want the palette because it's melt, then none of these are going to be like good suggestions for you, but I still just thought that I would kind of mention a few palettes. So the most obvious one, I feel like you're all going to be like, of course, but this is the Bubblegum Palette from BH Cosmetics. This one is less than $20. Is it like $18? Is that what this costs? I forget how much I paid for these, but this is an amazing all blue palette, and these are all the blues that you would ever want, and you get basically the same color story as you get in this one. So if you've been looking for blue eyeshadows, I would say definitely go with this one over the melt palette. And also this packaging is just, it's so cute. I do wonder if these are still in stock though. I'm not really sure. If they are in stock, I will link them. I will also link probably everything that I'm wearing if I have enough room in my description box. We'll see about that, but I'll try to link as many things as possible. But this is an amazing palette if you're looking for blue eyeshadows. Would highly recommend it. Another palette that I wouldn't say it's not like great quality, it's good quality, but it's not my favorite. But this is the Stupid Love palette by House Labs, and like, Color story wise, basically the same thing, but you get a lot more shadows, and I think that this was a little bit cheaper as well. I don't love the shimmers in this palette, but I also don't love the shimmers in the other palette. I would say I like these shimmers a little bit more than the ones in the Melt palette, but I like the Melt mattes a tiny bit more than the mattes in this one. But quality wise, I would say they're pretty, like, for me, about the same quality, and I don't mind this palette at all. I mean, I think it's fine. I like the color story. I like that there's a lot of options in here, and if you're looking for a half neutral, half blue palette, here's maybe another option. And then lastly, the palette that I have to mention, because this palette is so fantastic, and I probably rave about this way too much, but this is the Worldy palette by P. Louise. This is also quite an expensive palette, but you also get so many shades in here, and you also get pretty much the same color stories, but just more shades added. So you have all your blues up here. The blues in this palette are spectacular. The mattes are so good. And you also have your neutrals down here. You don't really have a lot of shimmers if that is what you're looking for, but again, it just kind of depends on why it is that you're interested in the Melt palette and what it is that you are missing in your collection. But this is an amazing palette if you know you don't mind the size of this being a suitcase and being really hard to store and really heavy. But it's an amazing formula and it's a really nice palette, and I don't know, I just wanted to kind of throw some stuff out there in case you've been looking for something similar. Maybe here's a couple of options, and if you still just want the Melt palette, I mean, go ahead and buy the Melt palette. I don't think you'll be upset about it, but I do think for $48, I probably didn't need this. Let's just put it that way. Like, I have this already. I have this in better or as good formulas that are in this palette, and I mostly bought this because I wanted to review it and because I was super curious about it, and I just wanted to see what the quality was like. And I know that there's a lot of interest in Melt, and that hopefully it would be helpful for you guys as well. So that's basically gonna be it for this video. Let me know if you ended up buying this palette, and let me know how you feel about it. If you have it, I would love to hear your thoughts, because I feel like a lot of people are probably going to like this maybe a little bit more than I do. And again, it's not that I don't like this palette, it's just that I have this already, like, you know. That's basically going to be it. So thank you so much for watching. As always, if you want to see my other multiple look videos, I will put my playlist up on the screen, and if you're new, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.